Welcome everyone to Together We Serve TV show. It's 2 p.m., a little after 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. Little technical difficulties. We were in two different studios. My bad. She's here. She's backstage looking beautiful and joyful because that's what today's about joy. But before we start, I've got a little surprise she doesn't even know about. A little video I found of her that I think you're all going to love. Bear with me a minute.
Welcome to the Joyful Optimist podcast. You've arrived in a space where joy isn't just a fleeting feeling. It's a way of being, a daily practice, and a game-changing power move. I'm your host, Sandy Casano, and in a world consumed by fear and stuck in survival mode, I'm here to guide you on a radically different path. This podcast is your passport to embark on a journey toward joy. A journey that breaks you free from stress and scarcity and helps you step into the best and highest frequency you can operate from. Joy isn't just a nice to have. It can be transformative. It's a secret to unlocking better mental and physical health, building a resilient mindset, and living a more creative, productive life. It strengthens relationships, especially the one you have with yourself. And it grounds you in a deep, healthy sense of purpose. And here's the truth. Most of us don't know how to prioritize joy.
Scarcity, fear, prioritize joy. I saw that this morning. She doesn't know. And it embodies her, but it should embody you. When we serve and together we serve, we should be joyful. I asked somebody a question this week. I said, every time you serve, this is somebody that loves to go out and serve and take care of people. Have you ever had a negative response? And they tilted their head and they went, you know what? I never thought about that. There's not a lot of things in the world 100% guaranteed, but when you serve with joy, 100% guaranteed. Let's bring our guest on. I'm going to stop talking. Sandy's doing the welcome, yes. Sandy.
Hey, Steve.
Sorry about that tech. Hey, you're welcome. It was crazy looking for you. I'm like, you sent that email, and we're being live here, being very open. But thank you for being here.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I got some questions, but more importantly, what inspires you to be so joyful?
Great question. And I think it's because it makes and it makes those around me feel good. And I think that matters. The energy that we bring, we are so consumed by what happens to us externally. And I've just learned over the years through all the life lessons that it really just begins with what's within us. And that radiates out to become the world that we live in, right? So the more love you want, you have to give more love. The more joy you want, the more joy you have to give, right? And bring into the world. So it's, asking and receiving. It's so simple, but not always easy to do.
The ask is big because a lot of us do give, but I forgot to ask for the first 30 years of my career. Now I've asked, big things have happened in my life joyfully. Let me ask you a double entendre. Why are you so optimistic about optimism of joy?
To be honest, I think I've always been naturally optimistic somehow. That's just how my brain feels wired. I tend to look on the bright side of things, and I respectfully understand that that's not everyone based on either their natural tendencies and their life circumstances. But that's one reason why I naturally gravitate that way. But B, I've also learned that by training my brain, even when it doesn't want to be optimistic, to get it to a place to look at what's the best that could happen. what are the gifts and opportunities, even when things aren't going the way I expected. It changes the way I perceive my life, and it changes the way that I can make choices and decisions. So, you mentioned it in the beginning about fear and survival in our nervous system. The more we focus on the negatives, the more negative that energy is within us. And it does change the way your body reacts, and it changes the way your brain reacts, and the way it starts to think. And it goes into that part of your brain that is in survival mode. And then it won't tap into those parts of you that are creative and resilient and clear headed and laser focused, and has the ability to take on those challenges that are probably what's giving you, the challenges in that moment in your life. So optimism isn't just a nice to have. It really is the key to making it possible for your brain to make the choices that it needs to make in those times, in those critical times, as well as every day. Yay!
Joyful cheer.
Yes.
What brings out the good in people. And when I first met you, I'm like, okay, there was a podcast when we first met you before. It doesn't matter. But okay, a joyful coach. Okay, there are a lot of coaches, mindset and business and HR coaches and love coaches. Doing it right, you're great. But you think everybody has to be joyful, or not has to be, should be. But everybody can be, but are not, right?
Yeah, and I say that joy can be your superpower. And for me, it's my singular purpose. And I used to believe in that big lie, Steve, that my purpose was attached to what I was, my job or my title, or who I, these labels that would then provide for joy and happiness later. And what I've learned over the years is that it has absolutely nothing to do with what you are doing. It has everything to do with who you are, your essence, your being. And that then kind of radiates out into the world, and however you are, in your workplace, in your living room, whatever that might be, in the supermarket. But it really just changes the field of energy around you. And I know that there might be people out there that's like, whoa, that's a lot of woo. But especially when working in corporate settings or working with leaders, I'm quite honest and upfront with them that, this is work, and it's hard work, but it's worth doing, because it's better to do it now than learn the long way around, that it's going to get harder in the end when you're just grinding it out and not being able to enjoy the life that you're working so diligently at trying to live. So I don't even know if I answered your question, but that's how I'm feeling, is that I started off coaching the way everyone else did, coaching executives and entrepreneurs and founders, and I enjoyed it immensely. And yet it started to grow into something more and a bigger movement. And what I saw in a lot of founders and in a lot of leaders is that they were incapable of getting to the parts of their being that they wanted to be. You become a founder or an entrepreneur because you want to enjoy your life, you want to be your own boss, and yet they were getting in their own ways. And what really untapped it for me was a client. I asked her, as she was juggling life coming at her in all directions, and I asked her, hey, what do you really want right now? And she took a breath and sighed. She looked at me and said, I really want to feel joy. And as she said that, it really resonated with me. I was like, I want that. And it started to really, the puzzle pieces started to come together. I've spent, a lifetime learning and getting insights and all the things that, meditation and learning about how our brain works. But this all just kind of click, click, click. It didn't matter where you were in your life or what your title was, sabotage and all those things. It doesn't care about what your title is, right? It happens to anybody. And I thought, hey, if I could be on the path of being of service to those in the world that are ready for this work, I want them to know that joy can be their superpower too. And it can open up doors and gateways to the things that they really want in life.
Yeah. Well, woo woo, you say woo woo energy. I know people, I didn't believe it 5 years ago. But audience, think about when you walk in a room and somebody lights up the room. I've been told I do that. I don't want to talk about myself, but because I'm joyful. I know you lit up my podcast because you're joyful. And people are like, well, it's a video. I said, no, it lit up. It's that energy you don't see, but it lit up the whole show. And people have told me after listening, it's one of my better shows because they smiled through the show. Who doesn't want to smile?
Yeah.
What's interesting, you said, and I'm going off script because you're just so awesome. Entrepreneurs want to be entrepreneurs, owners of business, etc. So they have freedom. But they don't. And they don't have joy. But we can have joy having all that, can't we?
Yeah, absolutely. You can. And again, it's not a quick fix, but it's an option and it's a choice and it's a practice. And I think once you start to make the choices and learn the ways, it's no different than our physical fitness, right? You can't think yourself to be healthy. You have to do it. And the same thing goes. And, I feel for the founders and entrepreneurs in the way that, I have been a serial entrepreneur too, that you don't get taught these things. You get taught to hustle and grind and just work hard. And for so many of us, that ethic has been just ingrained in our head, right? Like work hard, play hard, or, work hard and reward later. I'll be happy when. And there is that attachment I think a lot of entrepreneurs get to their big dream is that they have to wait until their baby is of fruition or at a certain level or bringing in certain money to be able to enjoy life or enjoy the moments or enjoy what they're doing, and they forget the path of what started them getting there. And what I try to do with my work is to have them appreciate whatever life is happening, whatever is going around you, that you can be happy now, you can be in joy now. Even when it's absolutely chaotic, there is this superpower, this option to still be in a state of joy. And joy is not this frivolous, toxic positivity. It's actually a deep rooted state of confidence and being. And you can be in a very powerful seat, and that kind of allows you to ride those big waves when they start coming at you.
You got a sign behind you. I'll come back when I put you in speaker mode. A negative mind will not lead to a positive life.
Yeah.
So it's caught my eye twice, and it's like so simple, but so big.
Yeah, it's just all these little things for me. I think about, there's another little catchphrase I like to use with my clients and when I talk to people and I say, what's the best that can happen? And it plays off that question that we've been told all our lives, right? What's the worst that can happen? We're kind of always taught to look out for the worst thing or the scary things. And we aren't necessarily taught to look for the silver lining or the opportunities or the bright sides. And I think for me, what I have learned is that when I can see and spot those opportunities, even when it doesn't feel like there is one, it opens up for me a level of just peace and resilience, but also a way out, right? It gets me to that next phase. And that's what joy does. Joy brings resilience. It brings that capacity to think beyond the problem that you have now. And it gives you the ability for your brain and body to adapt to what is coming next. And I think that is so powerful.
It's huge. It changes people's lives. And it's not like we're watching a comedy and laughing. Yeah, it makes you joy, but that's not joyful. That's not the action of joyful. That's the reaction of watching something funny, a baby laugh, right?
Totally. And Steve, you mentioned it earlier that we've all had this experience of being able to walk into a room and and know when someone is at a certain energy frequency where they are able to shift or uplift others, and the opposite, right? Someone can walk into a room and just really bring it down.
Yeah.
And I'm, willing to guess that a lot of your listeners might also be the person who has brought that energy one way or the other, right? And trying to figure out why. And so there is this important responsibility, especially for those that are in a leadership position. And it's not necessarily a title leadership, but of influence, right? If you are a purpose driven human that has influence, whether in the boardroom or the living room or the lunchroom, right? It doesn't matter. It's more that you have an influence on someone else's life as well as your own. Then you do have a certain responsibility to do the work yourself, to be able to have positive influence on others. And the scientific fact is that we have these energies that radiate out at a certain frequency, and joy is one of the highest frequencies on that spectrum. And so when you are able to keep yourself in a state of joy and tap into that state of joy, it not only impacts you, but it does impact others. And that really serves as a powerful tool when you are in leadership.
And I've learned, Sandy, you're such a brilliant woman. You really are. And I'm like, yeah, no, you are, because well, here's what I've seen. Joyful influence lasts much longer. I'm a owner of a company. I go to my 5 employees and go, great week this week. Get off an hour early. I'm so happy for you. Empathy, love, which is missing in business. Or I can come in and influence with down. Our numbers are down. We're struggling. We're in big trouble. Well, that joyful, the first one's going to last much longer than, and make a bigger impact than the non-joyful influence, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, that it's real life, right? And I think what is hard for some people to maybe connect the dots to is that, especially in our current day to day, but in every business, there will be days where things are down or things are hard or things you're like, what is the silver lining? And that's okay. It's more a matter of, it's not going to happen instantaneously, and it's not, again, a toxic move to be like, oh, everything's fine.
Yeah.
You want to allow things when they're bad to accept that they're bad, but there is this power of being able to accept and then convert, right? And
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. So I think that is also just part of the practice that I do with clients, is being able to get them to acknowledge and recognize when, even in its simplest state, outside of even a, you could be walking in and being like, oh man, I'm in a crap mood because the numbers are down and our sales are down. And, especially as a founder, it can impact your team. It could impact someone's livelihood, right? Like, it's a lot of responsibility. And so then the choice there is, though, do you want to continue down the path of everything is terrible and bad, and then which will trigger all the things, right? All the fear, all the saboteur thoughts that we normally have, and drive us into a state of survival mode. And it clicks so seamlessly that we don't even know it happens. That is the autopilot that we live in, right? That is our human nature. There's nothing wrong with what is happening, but we are also an evolved being, and we can learn to know to turn off the autopilot and take back the control of who we are.
Yeah. No, you told a story in the podcast, because you're right. Me and you are joyful. I know I'm joyful. I know you're really joyful. I think I am as well. But yes, I didn't have a good day. I was not joyful. But I didn't wake up this morning being, oh, yesterday was terrible. I'm going to make today, because I knew you were coming on. First of all, it's easy when you come on my show. Joyful. But that's important, because people are like, and maybe they come to you, Sandy. I know they come to me. Man, you seem happy all the time. I tell them I'm not. 90% of the time I am. But I'm not going to show you that, because you don't want to see that. Correct?
Hey, I think it's okay to be human and real. And I think there are days when I am not this, right?
Yeah.
Trust me. And ask my husband. And listen, when I am, what's more powerful for me is actually when I'm not, the ability to get into a state closer to joy than where I was. And I think that is also, sometimes you can't get there. If you're in a really low state, you can't get to that really high state, but you can get yourself a little bit higher and above. And what I know, what for me was hard and then becomes insightful and then becomes a lot of fun is that I am now at a state where I can be like, I am not resourced enough right now to take on more, right? Like I can tell internally when I am just either low energy or cranky or, grumpy or sad or angry. And I allow myself to be that and I don't push myself, but I also know ways now, techniques, mental fitness techniques, ways to kind of resource and exercise my brain or breathe into my body that allows some clearance of that so that I don't have to wallow or stay in that negative state for longer than I need to be, right? And I do that because I know it's important. Like I know that when I am in that state, it really impacts the relationship with my husband, and he's very tuned in and turned on to knowing like, hey, is something wrong? And it changes his mood. I can see it, and sometimes for me, the fun part is that I can kind of look from a different perspective at the scenario and say like, hey, if I continue down this path, we're both just going to have a miserable night or day or whatever that is. Or I can make a choice right now to, just shift even the slightest bit to make our experience together a little bit better in that moment. And that is powerful, right? That is, I think, what is really where I try to get clients and leaders, through a variety of ways to make these, to recognize when, hey, I can't do it, and then start to think, what are the ways I can, right? Think of, you think of like world's best athletes. Like there was some point in their lives when they couldn't do the thing that they're doing now, but with practice they got there. And it's the same thing. It feels really hard right now for some, but it's in the practice that you can get to these points where you're like, whoa, like I used to just spiral out, but now I know to stop and at least give myself a chance to make a different choice.
Yeah, that's where you're just a game changer for people, because outside person looking at accountability and the tools. Here's some tools, Steve, you can use. Maybe it's meditation. Maybe it's take your dog out for a walk. Find those joyful things that it's people. I know I talk to people that are hard to find. Now you open the door on leadership. I mean this a compliment. It's so everywhere now. People are teaching in so many different ways. But you got a cool phrase, conscious leadership. Dive into that, what it means and how it can help people.
It means leaders that are awake, that know what they're doing, and they're focused on themselves first in the best of ways, in the way that they're putting the oxygen mask on themselves first and doing the inner work, doing the mental fitness work so that they can come in a state where they are being influential in the best of ways and capable of leading in the best of ways when they are in the world. So just, being conscious, choosing not to be an autopilot. I think that is what the world needs now more than ever, right? To focus on all the things that can make the environment as healthy as possible so that, everyone can rise together versus just themselves.
You said the climate, and it's so well said, because people can find joy or find sorrow. That's the word that comes in my head. But find, because you go into politics, you go on TV, you go social media. What does mental fitness help with that? So if I start spiraling, you mentioned earlier, I go into this negativity, non-joyful attitude. Talk about some tools that you do, These are cool tools.
Yeah. So a lot of this, I have been the good fortune of being trained through an organization called Positive Intelligence by Shirzad Shamin, and we coined the phrase mental fitness. And what it is these abilities to train your brain, these micro exercises, and basically is one thing that it's called is a PQ rep. PQ represents positive intelligence, and a rep is very much like you would do a, like a dumbbell weight, like a rep, right? So repetition. And so something you can do in the moment is to focus on a physical sensation for 90 seconds. So in bouts of 10 seconds. So for example, you can focus on your physical sensation of touch. So rubbing the fingertips of your fingers and just allowing that to be the singular focus that you have, just noticing the fingertip bridges of your hand. And this is something you could do while on a meeting in a Zoom, and you can just have it, under the table and no one will. And this is a tool that you can use, like, oh, I'm starting to spiral, or I'm starting to, and what do I mean by spiral? Like, what if you are a people pleaser? Right. And you feel the urge, like, I'm going to say yes to everything and I really can't afford to take anything else on. What you might be conditioned, or autopilot is your autopilot you is that you're going to start spiraling in your head and start thinking and thinking, and you're not listening to what anything's happening in front of you. And instead you're just kind of consumed with your thoughts, and more than likely you're going to just spiral into saying yes or making choices that aren't going to be a benefit for you or to anyone else. And so what a PQ rep can do is give yourself a moment to stop the thoughts and give your brain a chance to make a different choice. Because when you start to enter into your body, it helps to stop your thoughts, and it helps you to start regulate your nervous system. And I think I've said this before on your podcast, that it's almost like a stop sign that wasn't there before in your brain. So it's a stop sign that gives you, a wake up call to be like, hey, you're going in this direction, but you actually have a choice to go here instead. And so that can be really powerful. I'm going to use my husband again. So I have a very, what we would call a stickler tendency. Things got to be just right. Everything's got to be in its place. And he very much doesn't have that. He has other great, qualities. And so when I am in not resourced, so what does that mean? When I'm overtired, or I'm consumed with thoughts, and I'm just kind of when I'm on autopilot, I tend to kind of barrel through and not notice that these habits that I have can really impact him and make him feel bad, right? So he could make a beautiful dinner, right, and spend all this time making dinner, and my stickler will walk in and be like, the kitchen is a mess.
Yeah, okay.
Right? And
Sure.
I'll just kind of huff and puff, like, that's a choice, right? Because I'll just be like, oh, great, you made dinner, but the kitchen looks like a war zone, like. So what does that do for him, the person that I love so much? It invalidates everything that he did. And is that the type of, and think about that when you're in a leadership position. Like, you could have someone who's worked their butts off on something, and you walk in and you're like, you missed a comma, or whatever that is.
Yep.
You're missing it. You're missing what that does to motivate and show any empathy to another person. You think that person's going to want to do their best job the next time around for you? Are they, like, these little things are human relationships. And so with mental fitness, like, for me, like, what I've learned is that when I feel those thoughts rising, when I understand that that's not really me, that is an old habit of me and an old version of me. And so I'm able to, do a PQ rep, whether it's the fingertips, or I'll breathe, like, just 2 deep breaths. Like,
yeah, nice.
And you can have this moment to be like, who do I want to be right now? What's important right now? And so, in that moment, I like, and I know that stickler thought is just BS. Who cares? The kitchen can always be clean, but a heart is hard to mend, right? And
Oh,
confidence and courage is hard to build back up.
that is such well said, because you're right. And I'm thinking you really did a great crossover between personal and business, because that was your personal life. But the same thing, your sales guy comes up, hey, I just got that $100,000 sale. Why wasn't it 200,000? That's how people lead. I'm like, guy called me last week and said, can you believe my boss said that? I said, no. You have to have a conversation with him. And
Yeah.
he's like, do I really want to stay here? I'm like, I can't decide that for you. This is so well said. I tell you, time flies when I hang out with you. And by the way, I did this while you were talking, when I was in backstage. I was off screen. I forgot what I was going to ask you. Literally in 30 seconds, my mind went blank. So I'm going to start an audience right now. I want you to take your fingers, and that's all she said. PQ. Just rub them together and focus on that. I was doing it. I feel how soft it was. And then you said something, and I'm like, oh, shoot, I got to come back. I left you on the screen by yourself,
Yeah.
but it works.
It works. And you know what, it's really great is that it just, like, again, it gives you a choice, and it's so in the moment, right? I meditate daily, but what's different about that is that meditation, you're in a quiet room, in a space away from everything, and oh, I'm so calm. And then what? Boom, you open up your email, or something, you go into a meeting, and it's like out the window, it's gone, right? All of that. And so this helps. What this does is it's about regulating in the moment, and I think that is so powerful, that I've never had before. I use it for things like when I'm procrastinating, right? Like, I know that when I'm procrastinating, it's not that I used to think that I was, because I was lazy. I used to think that there was something wrong with me. And I think a lot of other people do as well. And it's not. It's an emotional regulation, right? We have a fear or a story behind whatever task it is, even when it's small and it seems stupid that we're not doing it. There's something around it, right? So there's a story that we're not listening to within our body or in our brains or whatever. And so being able to resource myself with the breaths and the PQ reps, and just give myself, a chance to understand that I can approach this differently. It's changed the way I'm able to be productive, because I am less of a procrastinator. Now, I still do it, but I, again, know how to get myself out of that, versus before I would just beat myself up.
Yeah, when you said regulate, I think of blood pressure. So I've had high blood pressure. I'm fixing it, but if you don't regulate, you could die. My doctor told me that. If you don't regulate your emotions, you can either kill somebody else or kill relationships, or most importantly, kill the heart. You've been talking for a long time. It's time to take a break. We're going to go back to her podcast. By the way, it's a beautiful podcast. Her guests are unbelievable. Give her a break. Let's give this joyful woman, Sandy Cusano, a little break, and we'll come back and talk more. So we'll see you in about 5 to 6 minutes.
That's why this podcast exists, to help you not just learn about joy, but to live it. This is your invitation to reclaim the joy you deserve, renew your connection to the optimism within you, and rejoice in the life you are intentionally designing. So let's stop waiting for joy. You have permission to break free from old thought patterns, right here, right now. Let's begin. Hey, welcome to the Joyful Optimist podcast. I'm your host, Sandy Casano, and I'm here to help you reclaim your joy, align with your true self, and build a life you love. Now, it's January and the season of resolutions and goal setting. But let me ask you this. What if your goals didn't feel like a chore? What if, instead of feeling like you should achieve something, your goals actually sparked joy? Right? Sounds refreshing. So let's think about this. Today, we're kicking off with a powerful shift. Setting goals rooted in joy and intention rather than fear and obligation. Trust me, it'll change the way you approach everything from your career to your personal life. So let's dive in. First, let's talk about why traditional goal setting often misses the mark. Most of us write goals from a place of fear or pressure. Fear of not being enough, fear of falling behind, fear of disappointing others. We think things like, I should get healthier. I need to hit this target to prove myself. I have to check this box because everyone else is doing it. These kind of goals feel heavy, right? And that's because they come from a space of survival. And the irony is this: we instinctively use fear to protect ourselves, but fear is not a great motivator in the long run. So, I want to give you an example, a personal example. So, when I first sat down to plan my year, I wrote down the usual suspects: launch this, lose that, finish those. And it really felt meh, like I was just ticking boxes and really not feeling motivated. So, one of my goals was to launch this very podcast, which should sound exciting, right? But the way I wrote it was launch the Joyful Optimist podcast, period. Obligation. Another to do item. And when I read it back to myself, I could really feel the lack of motivation. And this was something that should be exciting, and yet my heart wasn't in it. I actually noticed myself avoiding it. So I paused and I asked myself, why am I actually doing this podcast? What about it brings me joy? What excites me about this goal? And what opened up from there was so different than launch the Joyful Optimist podcast. What opened up for me was that I realized I thrive when I am of service to others. I love sharing stories and sharing what I have learned with others.
Podcast. Yeah. It gives you a relax and be joyful. Part of it. That's what we're going to try. I love live video when things like
There
this
you
happen.
go. I got you now.
Remove the share. There we are.
There,
I don't love
we're
tech.
back.
I love your podcast. And you know me when I think about podcasts and these shows. What have you found doing your podcast helping people enjoy it?
Can you say that one last part? I just missed it.
How do you? How has the podcast helped you share joy with people, understand joy better, educate people better about joy?
Oh, okay. Great question. I use the podcast as a way to just be, just it's a tool, right? It's a resource, and so the way I like to bring those episodes together are these bite-sized chunks, like 5 minutes, just something that people can digest on, weekly or daily, however they want to come, so that, these micro lessons and reminders of things that have helped me, things that I've learned or inspired me. And so that's the point of the podcast. I used to think of myself as a coach, and that was the label I placed on myself. And I was a coach that did this, that helped these people, that did that. And now, as I said in the beginning, my purpose is to be in joy. And the way I do that is through all these different outlets. And one of them is through coaching, another is through the podcast. Um, it's funny, I was writing something today on my LinkedIn, and I immigrated to the US when I was 4 with my family. And my very first English word was no, which is very ironic because I have a hard time saying no as an adult. But it was the only thing I ever said for about a good, couple of months when we first came to this country. And, you know, I went into a kindergarten and I didn't speak any English, and I was teased as kids do. And I learned from that very young age the way to protect myself was to be quiet, stay silent, and stay small, and no one will hurt you. And that in my adulthood became my protective mechanism, right? When I felt confronted, I would get quiet and kind of shrink. But ironically, the thing that also really lights me up is to be able to speak and be on stages, whatever size. And so I have gifted myself the opportunity to do things like podcasts and keynotes and speak on stages because it fills my cup. It makes me energetic. It makes me joyful. It makes me want to do it more. It makes me want to, if it can reach just the one person that needed that message in that moment, then it's worth it. And so for me, it is the podcast in itself is just this amazing tool, that an arsenal that I can use to, it's an extension of my coaching is I think what I'm trying to say.
Oh, no, that's great. And you talked about joyful activities. Somebody will want to speak in front of the group, and that's okay. Somebody important is those activities that make give you joy.
Oh gosh, Steve, I don't know if it's me, but I'm still not hearing you that well. Can you repeat that question?
Kind of how important is somebody to find their joyful activities? Like I know a friend of mine, he loves to get away and go fishing. That's joy to him. If people don't have that, how do they find it? How important it is to find that joyful activity?
Yeah, great question. The joy I'm talking about, yes, there are these ways where we can go to places or tap into these external things, but there is this opportunity to also just have the choice to be of in your own being, in your own self, in that moment. One of the greatest ways to tap into that is gratitude. And again, all this stuff might sound very simple, and but gratitude is just a very powerful way to tap into that doorway to joy. And so you don't necessarily need to go to places. It's more, and I think it is more powerful to get to a state where you can just be in joy in the moment where you are without having to go anywhere. So I think there's different levels of experiencing joy and activating it.
Yeah, it's. Thank you. You answered much differently than I thought you would. It's not important if somebody came to me and goes fishing, and I have to go fishing to get joy. Don't make it such a big effort. It could be watching a baby laugh on YouTube or PQ. I'm going to keep bringing up PQ because you're just brilliant. Whoever developed it, you follow is great. You've got a question somebody just sent us, so I'm excited. Think about this. So, what advice do you give those living on autopilot?
Start the noticing, right? I think that is one of autopilot, think of it in the simplest of ways of how you know your life, or if you're on cruise control in your car and you don't want to be, you turn it off. Start taking back control, and you start doing it in the smallest of ways. Now, what I say to those that are maybe new to coaching or unfamiliar is that it's not, you can do this on your own. You really can. But it does take time and it does take work. And there is a benefit to getting a coach like myself or someone who is trained to do this that will help you expedite the process so that it's not taking you years, let's say. You can have these like sprints of being able to see breakthroughs quicker. So that can also be of benefit, is to have either someone trained in this that can help you turn off that autopilot, because again, it's not about insight. I think this will be familiar to so many people because it really is the way we are as humans, is that we'll go and we'll read a book and be like, aha, I get it, right? Or they'll listen to this, or they'll go to a workshop and be like, oh, I get it. But insight alone isn't going to create the change. You have to be in practice. You have to do it every day. And when you don't do the thing, when you fail at it, when you're like, oh man, I was on autopilot the whole day and I didn't even realize it till the minute my head hit the pillow, it's still an improvement because you caught it that day. And then you do it again the next day and you see like, okay, and you start to just be in the noticing of, where am I in autopilot? And then you stop. And there's something very powerful about just noticing the noticing.
Network marketing companies, multi-level, which I used to be part of way back in the day, they would do that. They'd have those conferences, joy, rewards, award, all that. It lasted about a week. People would reach out to people for a week, and then 14 days later, 2 weeks later, it's all that energy's gone. I love that it's practice because it is a skill being joyful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an absolute skill. So there is, you know, and it is being able to tap into your empathy. I think that is a really powerful way of being for yourself, because our kind of intuitive way, or not intuitive, actually, it's not intuitive. It's actually just what we've probably been taught um, all our lives, is to kind of beat ourselves up when we do the thing that we're not supposed to be doing. And so when you start to catch yourself in autopilot, um, the tendency will be like to beat yourself up, like, oh man, you did it again, or God, you're so stupid, like why did you do that? And that again isn't really going to help ingrain that experience. So it's more about, hey, you're doing the best, like you're really coming in at it with self-love and self-empathy. And I find that with so many people that I come across in my line of work, that is one of the hardest things for people to do. People tend to be such great givers and be able to be very loving or empathetic towards others, but when it comes to themselves, it's a whole other can of worms. And so that is a big chunk of also that experience of, making a shift and change. But yeah, I think being able to equip yourself with the right tools and turning off your autopilot, but just even asking the question and knowing that you are, is just a great step forward.
A huge step. So it's so simply said. I love it. I had a mentor tell me 5 years ago, you beat yourself up, you're going to beat other people. It may not be standing in front of you, but it might be the grocery store clerk that you yell at because you're beating yourself up for a contract. You can take it out on somebody else. Why, if you need people closer to you? And that's why it just doesn't, it never helps.
Yeah.
It just never does. We're coming pretty close to the end here. You made this TV show fly by. PQs, guys, girls,
PQ Rams.
ladies. What's a piece of advice? I want to dive into business mode because we're both entrepreneurs, not just business owners. Let's talk about entrepreneurs. You said it earlier, roller coaster. You have obstacles. You have things happen. What's one great tip to give them keep them on a 60% joyful track instead of 30%. So they're mostly joyful than not.
If I were to, great question. What was one thing that you would want as an entrepreneur is to just really be conscious about resourcing themselves. So it's very easy as an entrepreneur, I think, to get into the grind. Like you just kind of wake up and you go straight into it, right? You don't do the things, you don't, it's so important in that state of what you're doing. You're not just building a business, you're building your dream, right? Or your livelihood. Like really you want to, I like to think of it as like be the best boss that you could be to yourself. And I know from the hard way that I've not done that. So I'm telling from a state of like knowing and learning as well, is that, I, make sure that I eat well and exercise and get my sleep. Ugh, get sleep. Okay, Steve, you said one thing. Just go to bed, sleep. Entrepreneurs do not sleep and they think that it's cool, or they think that it's the way you're supposed to run a business or build a business is to burn the midnight candle. And gosh, you're doing yourself such a disservice. You're doing your brain and your body such a disservice by doing that. Go to sleep. You will wake up and you'll be fresh, and you'll give yourself a better chance of performing better the next day than this whole I'll work till midnight and wake up early and do it again. Like it just does not work.
Not a badge of honor when you talk. I've talked to many people over the last 2 years. Say, "Oh, I got 5 hours of sleep this week, every day." I'm like,
Yeah.
good. Well, no, I mean it's good because I got a lot of work done.
It's not cool.
Sleep.
I want entrepreneurs to know it's not cool. Get your 7 to 8 hours of sleep. You will be better.
It will come back. Excuse my language. It'll bite you in the ass. 6 months, 6 weeks,
Oh
6 months,
yeah.
6 years. Your health is great. Again, we'll just leave it with this audience. If you don't have your health, you have no business, and you're affecting other people if you have a team. As you're well aware. This is so cool. How can people find you, Sandy?
Hey, they can find me. My website is joyfuloptimist.com. And I just wanted to let you know. So I've just, of course, I just lost it, but I just launched 3 new workshops. So I just closed out my last 3. And so for anyone that's watching, whether live or on a recording, I have coming up at the end of June, I have a workshop called The Joy of Failure. Fail more, grow faster, which is great for entrepreneurs in reframing what failure means in the success cycle. And then I have another one called the Joy Reset on July 2nd, which is the halfway point of the entire year. So if you don't feel like you are feeling your potential for what you felt from the first of the year, this is your chance to kind of reset and do a mid-year wake-up call. And the last one, Steve, which I absolutely love doing, is the leadership reset. It's called Upgrade How You Think, Lead, and Perform. And it's experiential, and it's a great way for leaders at any level to just get some insights on who they are and who they really want to be,
Yeah,
and reframe that.
this is
So
great. Me, reach out to her at TikTok. Either one of us, you'll have access to me, of course, on my show. We got 1 minute left. I've got a jet reserved for you. You're going to fly anywhere in the world. Where are you going to fly? And what 3 people are you going to invite to fly with you, dead or alive?
oh man. Oh yeah, and use serve 50 for the coupon code. Where am I going? I'm going to you know what? I'm going to my home country of Korea. I'm taking my husband Danny, I'm taking my mom, and I'm taking gosh, who am I taking? I'm not quite sure. I'm taking you, Steve. We're going to Korea and we're having a great time, eating great food and being all joyful about it.
Joyful flight. Sandy, you're awesome. God bless you. I'm here to support you. Audience, reach out to her. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next week, Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern.